Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bonner here, Overtime Athletes. And for today's video, what I want to discuss is developing rotational power in baseball athletes, right? How to hit more with more pop and increase your exit velocity off the bat, all right? So what I want to do is break down a simple progression that we utilize while working rotational movement with our medicine balls. Now, if you want to increase your exit velo, obviously you should have a balanced training program filled with plyometrics, resistance training, things like that, where you're working the trunk. You're obviously increasing your overall absolute strength. But when it comes to the actual med ball progression, there's a myriad of different med ball movements that we do, but to just talk and work through one movement, what I want to work through is one progression of the underhand rotational throw. And this is a staple in our program to develop rotational athletes, all right? So the way that I like to increase or progress an athlete to develop more power throughout an off season is I like to isolate and elevate and then integrate. And let me explain what that means. Essentially what I want to do is I want to isolate down to the musculature or the movement that's going to support you in rotational, and that's the trunk. From there, we need to integrate it as we progress along with getting the lower body and the upper body involved so that we can integrate both the upper and lower halves and create one unit that can disassociate and create a whip-like in that body and obviously hit with more power. So let's get through that. Phase one is all about isolating, okay? So we wanna isolate the trunk to the most simplest form. And what that looks like is going to be a kneeling underhand toss, all right? So both knees are down, it's extremely important. Both knees are down. We're getting the athlete to move through a long range of motion and being able to explode into the wall. It's gonna be just like this. And then obviously we go on both sides to balance that out. The next progression from there is we actually go to a half kneeling. Now, by putting one foot up, you're actually creating more stability in the hips, which allows you then to use a little bit more hips into your throw, which looks like this. Boom, from there. The next progression after that, okay, is gonna be a little bit more integration where we get on the feet. Now the athlete and now the drills are gonna look a little bit more specific when it comes to hitting. All right, so I actually tell the athletes, don't think you're swinging a bat, but set up like as if you're swinging a bat. So I'll have them in their position. From here, underhand toss. The big thing I want them to focus on doing is loading this hip, pushing off first, and then allowing the body to follow through. That's my only cue. So load the hip, push off first, and then allow the body to come through, almost like you're creating that whip. So here, boom, and follow through. Make sure you're not pushing it. That's another drill. Make sure with the underhand toss, you're following through. Finally, we just make it a little bit more dynamic. And that's where we train a little bit more over speed, okay? So if this was developing more velocity, if we go and create a little bit more momentum, make it a little more dynamic, we could train the velocity side of things. And what that looks like is just getting a step forward, building some momentum, creating and generating a little bit more energy, and then being able to do the same movement into the wall. So almost gonna take like a crow hop step here, shoot from the hip, again, load the hip, ball comes from the hip, loads from the hip, and then explodes. So it's here, boom, and then you're exploding into the wall, right? So isolate, elevate, integrate, make it more dynamic, over speed, add a little bit more velocity to the movement to get true adaptation and get more rotational force for when you hit. I hope that helps. Follow in that sequence to hit more. I'll let you guys next time.